Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So, I generally don't make videos at like 6:15 in the morning. Usually I'm working out or something at this time, but I came across this article and I figured I need to do this now before my day gets started and I lose time due to the chaos that is life itself. Right, so I've been hearing about this recently. It's something that comes up every now and again in the gaming space, which is the issue with difficulty levels, right? Now, as I think I've made perfectly clear through my videos throughout the life of the channel, I am very much an old school gamer, right? I started gaming at the age of 4 years old, so that would have been 1989, right? And I grew up in and fell in love with gaming during the 1990s. So gaming culture was very different then than it is now. But I find what is expressed in this article by Mr. John Walker here to be completely the antithesis and completely antithetical to what gaming as an activity is, right? Now I'm going to go through the article, but to summarize it, he basically tries to write a salty opinion piece, right? Trying to explain why you more or less should remove any challenge from video games, right? Remove any challenge from them, be able to skip boss fights, be able to have things like an invincibility toggle available at jump. Not something that you have to find or unlock, right, as you play the game. Right, so I'm not talking about like a new game plus scenario where invincibility, right, is sort of the prize that you get for beating the game, right, on its standard difficulty, and now you get to sort of play around with these cool new toys, right? I'm not talking about that. I mean, apparently, from what I understand of this, Psychonauts is supposed to have an invincibility toggle available at jump, right? So it goes well beyond just having a easier than easy setting, which seems to be what a lot of people who write at these modern gaming magazines seem to want, and not simply, well, let's just remove any and all obstacles or challenges from video games and just make them movies. To which I say, well, then just go watch a movie. Or if you're not interested in playing a game, but you're interested in the story and the narrative, watch a playthrough. But challenge should not be removed from a video game, right? It shouldn't be. Uh, Various difficulty levels, fine. That's always been around, and that should stay. But challenge should never be removed from video games. Obstacles, right, should never be removed from video games. You should have to get good. You should have to actually want and need to improve to get all the cooler stuff, right? Like I remember when I was a little kid playing Street Fighter 2, yeah, you could beat the game on easy. I beat the game plenty of times on easy. But you couldn't unlock the endings until you beat the game on level 4, which was the normal setting. Because it had 8 stars, so naturally 4 is right in the middle. It's the normal setting. And then, if you wanted the secret credits roll, you had to beat the game on level 8, right? It gave you incentive to improve, and that should not be taken away from video games just because you have individuals like Mr. Walker here who don't want to actually play a video game, who don't want to actually have to work for your achievements. Part of playing video games or just engaging in anything that is inherently competitive, for example sports, is having to work for your victories. For example, you don't get to come into a basketball game, right, with 100 points on the board at jump. No, you don't get to come in and automatically be declared the winner. You have to compete. You have to earn that victory. And that is something that should never be removed from something that is inherently competitive. And video games are competitive. and video games are inherently challenging. We have gone from the like uber like too difficult years of games like Battletoads or Ninja Gaiden to now basically trying to take something that was always an interactive activity and now make it passive and yet still get credit for being a gamer. I'm sorry, this may be the most anti-gamer thing I have read this year thus far, and we still have a good uh, 5 months, right, to the end of the year, and this may be the most anti-gamer thing I have read so far this year. So let me go through the article so you guys can see what I'm talking about, right? So it says here Microsoft calls for an end to Git Good. Well, good thing I don't patronize Microsoft. Well, beyond my computer or whatnot, but when it comes to video games, I've never been an Xbox person, and now I feel better for not being an Xbox person. So it says here, Double Fine joins in announcing an invincibility toggle for Psychonauts 2, right? So it says here, scroll. Before the weekend, it says here that before the weekend, Microsoft's Xbox Twitter account sent a surprisingly important tweet. Beating the game on the lowest difficulty level is still beating the game. That is true. As someone who's beat nearly every game she ever had initially on easy mode, that's true. But here's the difference, it's not an accomplishment, right? Easy mode is meant to ease you in, right? In hopes that you will try to beat the game on higher difficulty levels, right? Yes, you can still beat the game if you beat it on the lowest difficulty, but you have done nothing impressive. You have done nothing worth praise. That's the difference. This was then followed up by Double Fine, who added that completing Psychonauts 2 with the invincibility toggle on still counts as beating the game. No, it shouldn't. Because the invincibility toggle should not even be available until after you beat the game. It's one thing if it's a reward. Sorry. Saw something on my wall. It's one thing if the invincibility toggle is something that you earn for beating the game in its regular standard setting or difficulty, and that's your reward. For example, back when Metal Gear Solid was new, right? You could get two different endings, and each ending gave you a different special item. If you beat the ending where you save Meryl, you would get the unlimited ammo bandana, and that came back in Metal Gear Solid 2. And if you beat the game and sadly Meryl dies, you would then get Otacon's stealth camo, and you had to choose one. You couldn't use them at the same time, but you could use either item in various replays, right? You could do a new game plus and have those items available, and I'm perfectly fine with that. That's always been available in gaming: cheats, codes, right, stuff like that, because especially in the older days of gaming, a lot of these cheats like level cheats or even an invincibility cheat were originally created by the programmers or the QA testers who were working on the game, and because they would create these cheats and codes and whatnot so that they could work on the game, right? For example, if you are working on a game that has like 50 levels and you're trying to fix something on level 35, right, and you're still in the building and testing phase, you don't want to have to play through 34 levels just to get to the issue at hand. So they would create a level skip code that would allow them to just go where they needed to go. And the thing is that because video games have always been expensive and always been a time crunch even back then, right? A lot of these cheats and codes, they don't have time to go back into the finished product, because if you've ever written code, you understand how difficult it is to adjust. right? They would just leave those cheats and codes in, and they would just basically cut off general access in the game to those items. But of course, because gamers are a very curious lot, people would play the game and they would notice a thing here or a thing there or whatnot, and they would learn about these secret cheats and codes and they would share them and all that. Of course, this was back before the internet became what it is today, so a lot of these things were like urban myth, right? And there were certain things that were made intentionally to be hidden so that, a particularly persistent or curious person would find them, and that still happens to this day. But a lot of cheats and codes initially were not for the benefit of the player, they were for the benefit of the programmer when they were still in the, building and testing phase, right? But that's a bit of the history of it. But still, they've always been a part of gaming, and I have no problem with that. But they're not a tool that should be available to the player at the outset of a game. The closest thing that should be available on the outset of a game is the option to, adjust difficulty, assuming that that option is made available. Not every video game is going to have that or needs that. Some just have an inbuilt difficulty setting, and it is what it is. But most video games allow you to adjust, and that's fine, right? So it says here that Double Fine added that completing Psychonauts 2 with the invincibility toggle on counts as beating the game, which is about the most refreshing thing I've seen come out of gaming in forever. Well, for me, it's the most terrifying thing I've seen in a while. It was probably about 4 years ago that one of gaming's most tiresome, festering corners was at its peak. This is going to be a very, nuanced and mature written article, right? The Git Good scrub crowd furiously policed the internet, looking for any and all signs of gaming weakness, and swiftly punished with its pylons and abhorrently personal abuse. You mean people called you out on your BS? As Dark Souls 3 was at its peak of popularity and every other game was attempting to ride in from Software's wake, along came Cuphead. Oh yeah, the game where even the tutorial was too difficult for gaming journalists. Although anybody who's ever played a platform in life was able to get past that part, right? And we entered a perfect storm of gamer douchebaggery. Mr. Walker, the only douchebag I see here is you. You are the one advocating for a challengeless game, right? You're the one in support of having an invincibility toggle available at jump. You are antithetical to what video games are. They are interactive. They are challenge simulators. I literally made a video about this over a year ago. They are challenge simulators. They provide you something to compete against. They give you objectives to accomplish. It is about achievement. And you are salty about the fact that there's a video game that makes you work, right? Guess what? If you want anything good in this life, you must work for it. If you don't want to work, that's fine, but then just leave. If you're not willing to earn your stripes, make your bones, compete, and beat challenges, right, in sports or in life or video games or anything else, that's up to you. But that doesn't mean that the activity itself doesn't change, or rather, the activity itself needs to change. This is beyond getting a participation trophy. This is declare me winner, declare me victor, without having, with me not having to try or do anything. And I am firmly against this type of uh, lazy victimhood, uh, agencyless mindset. You basically want to be awarded praise for doing nothing, I can't abide by that. Right? So, I experienced the frankly baffling force of this fury on plenty of occasions, but never more than when I published an article on jaunty Kotaku tribute site Rock Paper Shotgun, calling for a button that allowed players to skip boss fights. And you wonder why you got pushback. You shouldn't be able to skip a boss fight. Skip cutscenes, sure. Skip loading scenes, or loading screens, I should say, I wish. But skip boss fights, no. The literal point of a boss character is to serve as the challenge so that once you beat them, you can advance in the game. They're the gatekeeper. Like I'll give an example. Streets of Rage 2. The first boss character you run into is the bartender in the previous stage. You cannot advance on the stage 2 until you beat him. That's the point of the character. He serves as a gatekeeper. You want to progress in this game? Defeat him. Overcome this challenge, and you can go on to level 2. Guess what? Even me at 7 years old was able to find a way to beat him, right? As did my brother, who, despite being younger than me, was actually much better at video games than I was at that time. Very annoying. But we found a way, and that's what made the game enjoyable. Running into a challenge and overcoming it. If you are looking for some sort of existence, real or imagined, where you just get to just breeze on through, I have a bridge to sell you, because life doesn't work that way, and video games shouldn't either. This rather innocent suggestion that the whole of a game should be accessible to those who thought, to those who'd bought it, was met with all manner of suggestions of how I should kill myself. Well, first of all, I strongly disagree with death threats. Now, I will say that in sports circles, someone telling you to kill yourself is not an actual call to suicide. It's actually a very crude way of telling you to shut up. So it could be they were just using it in that sense. But regardless, I firmly disagree with saying phrases like that to somebody just because you disagree with them, right? That's just stupid and immature and doesn't foster uh, conversation. Just to be clear, I disagree with people strongly who engage in that type of thing. But I also disagree with Mr. Walker here, who wants a button to skip boss fights. Get good, scrub. Right? But here's the thing, he talks about accessibility. Several factors impact accessibility, but difficulty is not one of them in most instances. Things like price impacts accessibility, right? How affordable is the game? If it's too expensive, well then nobody's going to be able to buy it, right? No one's going to be able to enjoy it. That's an accessibility issue. Things like, for example, if someone has vision problems, right? If someone has vision problems, games are very much a visual medium, right? There should be settings in the game, right? Or settings on your computer or your system or whatever it is that should allow a person with vision issues to be able to play the game just like any other person who doesn't have vision issues can. Those are accessibility issues. Difficulty levels are not. Stop trying to conflate the two. They are not the same. One is demanding that you play the game and beat it. The other one is addressing a particular problem that would make that unreasonably difficult or impossible for certain individuals who have physical or mental, but mainly physical disabilities. I literally have to, or rather, literally something that we are often educated on in my job, in my professional work, is reasonable accommodations. And we are regularly told that reasonable accommodations are not about taking away the essential functions of a particular job. It is about providing the person who's requesting the accommodation the means to do the job, just like any other person who doesn't need an accommodation, right? That's the purpose, to give them the means to do their job, not to take the essential functions of the job from them. And even then, it has to be a reasonable accommodation. If it's an accommodation that's just unreasonable, right, for the school's means or operations or whatnot, it doesn't have to be granted, right? And someone saying, well, I don't want to do my job anymore, or rather, I don't want to do one or more of the essential functions of my job anymore because I have this or that issue, would certainly be an unreasonable accommodation. It would be an unreasonable request. You're supposed to give them a means to do the job as written, not take the job and make it overly easy and take the essential functions away. You are basically advocating for taking the essential function of providing a challenge away. You are asking for an unreasonable accommodation, sir. Right? So let's see here. He says, in other words, says how I was proof of the demise of games journalism. You are, right? And of course, how I must get good. Indeed, you should get good, scrub. In other words, it was a coordinated torrent of panic from scared little boys whose only source of pride was being threatened by my suggestion. Oh my goodness, I had no idea I was a scared little boy. Then again, look at this haircut, and I have a unisex name. I've been lied to all my life! And then we have this tweet from Xbox saying that beating the game is still beating the game. Yeah. Thing is that it's nothing worth talking about. It's no special achievement. That's the thing. Beating the lowest difficulty should be an introduction to the game. It should not be something that is praiseworthy. I'm of the old school where video games would actually mock you for playing on the easier setting. It says here, it's quite extraordinary. Just 4 years later, I'm reading Xbox shooting down this attitude that nightmare difficulty is the only acceptable way to play. Well, here's the thing. No reasonable person was ever saying that nightmare difficulty or perfect runs or things of that nature were the only acceptable way to play. I've watched plenty of playthroughs of various video games, of games that I've played or games I haven't played, where the person doesn't do a perfect run, right? Or where they mess up something or they fail a mission. And I find those to be perfectly fine because the person's playing the game, right? It's not this polished presentation. That's what happens when you play a game. You lose, you mess up, and you're given the chance to do it again, right? So long as you have enough lives, or you're just willing to try and try again, right? But that's also what makes winning fun, right? Losing time and time again, and then finally you win, and that sense of accomplishment after having tried so hard so many times and it finally works out. That's not something that can be described. It's something you have to experience for yourself. But no reasonable person was ever saying that you're only a real gamer if you play on nightmare difficulty. Most gamers don't play on nightmare difficulty unless there is some sort of challenge, right? For example, I think it was what, Metal Gear Solid 2? There was this challenge to, like, collect all of the dog tags off the soldiers, and you had to play at each difficulty level to meet the objective. So yes, I had to play on whatever it was, hard or extreme, whatever the last one was. And after I did that, I never played on that setting again. I played on normal most of the time after all that. So I think a lot of gamers are the same. Probably just playing on normal. Maybe hard for those who want to step it up a bit, but I don't think the majority of gamers are playing a game on nightmare difficulty, right? Without some sort of impetus for it, right? Some sort of carrot for them to get, right? And then it says, finally, and so very belatedly, taking a stand against Git Good attitudes that poison this hobby. Well, no, sir, it's your attitude that poisons this hobby. Video games have always been about get good and about being challenging. You are the one trying to change gaming, and you're upset that people like me will not fall in line. So, as I've said several times already, get good, scrub. It's even better to see individual developers joining in, taking the same stand. You mean being cowards and making basically a movie. Basically, a movie. If you don't have to work to beat the game, then it's a movie. And movies are fine, but movies aren't video games. Movies are passive, video games are active. If you take the active out of a video game, then it's no longer a video game. Go watch movies instead. It's even better to. Sorry, I already covered that. While to you or I it may seem completely innocuous, oh, it's not innocuous to me, sir. To read Double Fine saying completing Psychonauts 2 with what's essentially a cheat switched on still counts as completing the game. Again, if this was something that you had to unlock after beating the game and you did this on a new game plus, would be no problem. But if to my understanding it's available at the outset of the game, big problem. Right? It's really hard to convey just how contentious and controversial a position this is out there on the internet. It's contentious and controversial because you are trying to turn video games into something they are not. That is what makes it controversial. If you beat, what's it say here? If you beat Psychonauts 2 with the invincibility toggle on, you still beat P2. And again, unless it's something you've earned, it's not something worth talking about. That's the difference. They continue, mocking the previously louder, more prevalent attitude. Excuse me, I beat Sword Guy serious time on a no-hit hard mode, and if didn't do that, I don't respect you. And like, can you even comment on things that you're not Diamond 6 rank and shooting McBlam? Yeah, again, most gamers are not doing that. Sure, you have some elitists who feel that the only way you can truly prove yourself is to do a perfect run on the hardest difficulty. But the majority of people who are like that are not liked in the gaming space because most gamers are not at that type of skill level, right? And the only time I've ever seen that type of attitude is on YouTube, is on social media, right? Back when you had to actually be in person in the same room playing a video game, at least in my experience, people didn't behave that way. People may have good naturedly teased you or razzed you, but people cheered you on. People gave you tips and tricks and said, "Oh, this enemy's coming from this side. Move, run, duck." Or, "Oh, there's this secret passage this way. I found it in my playthrough. Go here." People were trying to help you. They weren't trying to mock you most of the time, unless it was in good-natured fun, right? I miss those days. I miss those days of sitting in a room, right, and passing the controller around. I really do. I really do. Because I think that it really curbed the type of attitudes that were on display here. Both from Mr. There should be no challenge in a video game Walker to the elitist attitude that he parodies here in this particular comment, right? I don't think so, they tease, concluding, "Cool, bud, you're so cool." Then slightly more sensibly spell it out. All people should be able to enjoy games. Indeed, but here's the thing, gaming is not for everybody. Apparently, it is not for you. All ages, all possible needs. Again, difficulty levels are not an accessibility issue. It's an ongoing and important process for our industry and a challenge we need to meet. A challenge we need to met. I guess he meant meet. End of the day, we want you to have fun, to laugh, to experience a story that affects you, or whatever terms you want. And I agree with all that. But that doesn't mean that you remove a challenge from a video game. Adjust the challenge, sure, but you should not have an invincibility toggle available at jump. You should not have things like skip a boss fight. You should not be trying to remove the challenge element of a challenge simulator. And you guys whine about Dark Souls. I grew up in the age of Battletoads. Shut up! Amen. I mean, it'd have been nice to hear these voices half a decade ago. Okay, you mean what? Half a decade? 5 years, all right? You mean 5 years ago? Just say 5 years ago. But thank goodness we're hearing them now. No, this is not a good thing. Don't thank goodness. Don't thank God, right? This is not a good thing. Of course, both sets of tweets have been met with all manner of fury, right? Going to school while sleeping through classes is still going to school, quote tweets one poster, failing to understand the difference between participating differently and not participating at all. But here's the thing, that tweet is totally correct, right? Because it talks about going to class. Yeah, technically you are there, but you are not participating. You're not learning anything. You're literally sleeping through it, right? It's talking about not getting credit for just being there. You, Mr. Walker, are the one who wants to get credit for for just being there, for just showing up. You don't want to participate. You don't want to work at the game. So yes, that tweet is perfectly fine. You're the one who's in the wrong here, sir. This is not about participating differently. This is indeed about not participating at all. That's what you want. You don't want to participate at all. A podcast with 6 followers. Oh, so we're gonna shade people because of follower counts now, are we? We're gonna punch down because you can't actually defend your argument, so you punch down instead. Right? Explains for us whether they're played on a screen or in real life, games are largely about bettering yourself or being part of a team. Yes, whatever podcast that was with 6 followers is absolutely correct. Right? Which is the most impressively blinkered perspective to not be able to see outside of. It's the right perspective. There's no need to see outside of it. You're the one who needs to see outside of your perspective, sir. Others obviously opt for the more nuanced position of using homophobic slurs, but my favorite is the guy who begins tangibly and provably false before telling game developers how games are developed. Okay, and? Any objection to the notion that completing games by any means, except you're not completing the game by any means. What you are advocating for is the very antithesis of beating the game by any means necessary. Is acceptable can only be rooted in a desire to exclude others. Yes, to exclude people like you who are not gamers. I try very hard to not be elitist, but I'm gonna be elitist here. I'm a freaking grandmother in video game years, right? I've been here since Jump Street, right? You are not a gamer. No gamer advocates for this type of thing. Watch movies. If this is what you want, watch a movie. Watch a playthrough. That's perfectly fine. But you are not a gamer, Mr. Walker. Right? So let's see here. Where was it? Oh. Just a picosecond of thought gets any reasonable human being. You are not being reasonable here, sir. To the point of recognizing that not all people playing games might be as able-bodied as you are. Stop using disabled people as a shield for your whack ideas. Additional thinking time might see others reaching conclusions like how someone else plays this single-player game in their own house cannot have any impact whatsoever on my experience. Well, that's true, right? Whether I play a game on easy, normal, hard, or anything else doesn't impact how someone else plays it, right? It's customizing the experience. But whether you play on easy or whether you play on hard, there's still challenges to get past, achievements to earn, missions to complete. You are advocating for removing any and all challenge from a video game, right? And how it would be deranged to think otherwise. Oh, you are the one with the problem here, sir. The only reason for gatekeeping gaming, yeah, this is definitely a reason to gatekeep gaming. You are one of the bad actors who definitely should not be in the gaming space anymore. You are not a gamer, sir. You are not a gamer. You are lazy, but you are not a gamer. So yeah, in this case, I would certainly be in favor of gatekeeping people who agree with you out. Yeah, so this is definitely where we need to mind the gates via this intransient attitude toward difficulty. You're the one with the attitude problem toward difficulty, sir. You want to take something that's always been a part of gaming and take it away because you don't want to work. It's to protect the most fragile of egos. No. Though I will admit, I do have a big ass ego. Right? And they are only propped up by the belief that gaming skill affords the individual superiority over others. Because to a certain degree it does. It does. Games are competitive, right? Fighting games are competitive. If I play a fighting game, right, and I beat you with two perfects and not having to use special moves and I totally clown you, yes, in that moment, I am your superior, right? Who's your daddy? That's the point. It's to win. It's to be better. It is to improve, to become skilled, right? I hope you never play sports because you would be sent home crying 5 minutes in. A 5-year old has much more competitive spirit than you do, sir. Right, and then let's see here. The lack of perspicacy. I have no idea what he's saying. To realize this, while so feverishly raging about it in public, is utterly peculiar. I'm not raging about it in public. You're the one who wrote this article. I'm just responding to it. There's still work to be done, of course. It depresses me. Well, believe me, sir, this is incredibly depressing for me too, just for different reasons. It depresses me that both Xbox and Double Fine chose to use the terms beat the game rather than complete or finish it. What, do you want midway to like sue them now? Finish him. Whenever I read or hear someone saying about how they beat the game, I can't help but imagine they're finishing watching a subtitled philosophical movie on Netflix, then thrusting their arms in the air, bellowing to all around how they beat the film. And like I said earlier, this is the difference. Movies are different than video games. Movies are passive. You can react to a movie, you can respond to a movie, you can write a blog post about how you felt about it, right? But you can't interact with it. You have no say over what the lead characters do. You can't control them. That's the difference between a video game. If you play any type of video game, you take control of the player character and you take them through this journey, right? You can choose how they interact. That's the difference. Interactivity, control, being made a part of the narrative in this way. It is active, not passive. If you want passive, watch a movie. Anyhow, the good news is Psychonauts 2 will come with an option to make yourself invincible. That's not good news. in case you reach a level or boss fight that proves too tricky for you to get past. Ever hear, if you don't succeed, try again? Maybe you should learn to do that, right? And extraordinarily, for everyone else who doesn't believe it has any right to exist, they can just not use it. Well, I agree with you there. If I was interested in Psychonauts, I certainly wouldn't use that toggle. But it doesn't mean that it's a good idea. It doesn't mean that it's good for the game or for gaming in general. So yeah, so it has a right to exist. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I also have a right to respond to it and to call it out for the BS that it is. And then it says, update, disclosure, Heather Alexandra, an ex-Kotaku staffer, currently works at Double Fine. Ah, so you have a spy in there. That's what it is. That's why you wrote this. Because there's a spy. There's a spy from Kotaku at Double Fine. No doubt this person is the one who thought this was a wonderful idea. Right? As I've said previously, as I've said several times throughout this God knows how long video, this is antithetical to gaming. Gaming should always be a challenging experience. You can adjust the level of challenge. That's fine. Always been there. There's always been cheats and codes and whatnot. I know. I'm from the old school. I have stuff like this. Right? But games should never, ever, ever, ever be passive. They should be active. They should challenge you. They should indeed demand that you improve. Get good, scrub. This game is one of the toughest games I've ever played in my life. And I'm so damn glad it is. Because when I finally did win, the victory was that much sweeter because I had to earn it. And if I still had a working Genesis, I would be playing this right now. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day and night wherever you are. Bye.